Yeah, I have a, do you see the the gray? There we go. That helps. Thanks. Um, okay. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12th, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, General Laws, Chapter 30A, Section 18, and the governor's March 15th, 2020 order imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place. Members of the public who wish to watch and listen to the meeting may do so in the following manner. WCTV, Channel 9, Comcast Xfinity, Channel 37, Verizon Fios, and live stream WCTV.org. This meeting of the Wilmington Conservation Commission is being conducted via remote participation. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. Members of the public who would like to listen to this meeting while in progress may also do so via telephone by dialing 1-646-558-8656 and enter meeting ID 824-1232-4160. Then press pound and press pound again at the next voice prompt. Members of the public attending this meeting virtually will be allowed to make comments if they wish to do so during the portion of the hearing designated for public comment. By following the steps previously noted, then press *9 on their telephone keypad. This will notify the meeting host that the caller wishes to speak. All callers using this feature will be placed in queue in the order they entered the prompt. In the event that despite our best efforts, we are not able to provide for real-time access, we will post a record of this meeting on the town's website as soon as we are able.
Thank you.
Sure. I'd like to call the meeting to order then. The time here appears to be 7:05. Let me call the roll, so to speak. Ron,
I'm here.
Alex? Alex, you're muted.
Oh, I'm here.
Alex.
There's two Alexes. Which
Oh,
one?
all right.
Sorry, town
Alex.
council.
Yes, sorry. Alex Rittenhouse. Here? You'll have to say here, actually. Alex? Alex Rittenhouse.
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
There we go.
can. Thanks very much. Vinny? Mike?
Present.
Okay, and Don Pearson here.
And Laura.
Laura, where'd you go? Laura. Yes,
Hi, I'm here.
thank you. So the only order of business is, could you share the screen again, Val?
Sure.
A public hearing for an abbreviated notice of resource area delineation, 378, 384 Middlesex Ave and 200 Jefferson Road. Okay. Let's begin. Are we waiting for someone to speak to this?
Or are we waiting? I'm sorry. I didn't know if it was formally turned over to the
Yes,
applicant.
please do.
Okay, thanks.
Okay.
My apologies.
Valerie, could you bring up the plans?
Sure.
Yep, thank you. So while you're bringing up the plans, my name is David Cowell. I'm a senior wetland scientist with Hancock Associates here in representation of the project on behalf of the applicant.
And I'm Joe Pesnola from Hancock Associates, also representing the applicant.
Thank you, Joe. We submitted an ANRAD application to verify the extent of wetland boundaries and their associated buffer zones on, this is, I believe it's a total of, how many lots, Joe? I think 7 lots that are under common ownership.
With regard to the assessor's parcels, yes.
Okay. So in any case, we've provided a wetland delineation that we'd like to have vetted by the Conservation Commission. That includes bordering vegetated wetland, mean annual high as it pertains to riverfront area. And there is associated mapped floodplain, which we detail in the plan with the floodplain elevation as well. I understand that there has been a very long history on determination of mean annual high water on this property. So under the opening hearing tonight, I'd like to at least talk about it a little bit, maybe receive some feedback from the Conservation Commission. I understand that we did receive a letter earlier on today from the, was it the Headwater Streams team? And they had some comments on this. So I think that just in the opening hearing, we'd like to talk and get some feedback from the commission as well. But I think that ultimately what we're looking for is, I believe you had mentioned maybe peer review by BSC, and also a we wanted to talk about a possible site walk. But let's just go over the wetland lines as we have them demarcated on the plan. So we've detailed it, mean annual high water. So just to give, I don't know how many commission members have been on since 2006 and how many members are new, but to generally conceptualize what's going on out here is that you have a mapped perennial stream in the middle of a very large wetland complex. So there's a lot of different layers that are overlapping, and it's a complicated site in that regard. Now, 9 times out of 10, riverfront area broadcast off of the mean annual high watermark is coincident to the resource area inland bank, the confined embankments to the actual channel itself. Now, in this case, and I understand that this was subject to exhaustive review in 2006, is that in certain cases of underlying areas like this, is that the mean annual high water can exceed bank full conditions of the actual confinement of the bank. And that's what's going on out here. And our approach to this was basically following a muck line. It was a line that was subject to saturated and inundated conditions. And a lot of this is, I think, very conservative and to a large degree on line with what was being done in 2006.
Just a correction there, Dave. It was
Please, Joe.
Yeah, the original ORAD that was issued was 2002, 2003. It went to a final order of resource delineation at DEP level, and then that was appealed and adjudicated to a final order in 2003.
Thank you, Joe, for the correction. Too many hearings at once and dates are befuddled. Thank you, Joe. So we've detailed that what we depict as the mean annual high water line shown on this plan. I don't know if Valerie can zoom into a little bit of a closer scale on the plan. It's starting from the right. Okay, so if you go to the right where there's a culvert that comes in or exits out through it. Let me see. So I have the photo box over the plan. So starting at, well, there's the wetland flag series. What's depicted is wetland flag A100. This is bordering vegetated wetland. So this flag is a flag series that I put in. This is based on your conventional bordering vegetated wetland delineation based on vegetation and soils. And then internal to that, there's the Z series. And the Z series starts at the culvert where the perennial stream exits underneath Middle Street. This flows, as this would be oriented, it would flow east. And the Z flags come up following this muck line up to flag, and unfortunately I keep having to move the photo box of everyone's faces to follow the line. Can you pan to the left a little bit, Valerie? Sorry, it's hard not to be in the driver's seat. I'm just wondering if you guys can you run the icon along the Z series flags so that the commissioners can see
Sure.
what it is? Okay, thank you. Okay. So that's the Z Philly SAGs heading. If you head west to flag Z118, and then if you can pan over in this muck line, it continues up where Z23 up to terminal flag Z31. Which is at a point where it runs further off site and wouldn't broadcast beyond there. Now, I don't want to, we received some comments. I haven't had opportunity to really vet the comments that were received. I think that written comments would warrant written responses. So I would like opportunity to vet the comments that were received late today, an opportunity to provide written comments prior to the next hearing.
But just as a matter of history, we understood the 2002, 2003 history. We understood the parties at hand, being Suzanne Sullivan and Martha Stevenson. And we proactively reached out to them and actually had 2 site visits with them on site to understand the differences of opinion, the reasons for appeal, and so forth. So we met them on site. We talked about that, and the original, I guess, opposing position to Suzanne and Martha was the channel proper and the bank of the channel proper, which is where you could see on aerial photography where that stream is. Their position was that it was the area of maximum inundation that they interpreted to be mean annual high and should be the start of the riverfront. In a spirit of cooperation, this being, this is a precursor to obviously a project, and that project is a friendly 40B that's been endorsed by the selectmen. And in that spirit of cooperation and friendliness, we met with Martha and Suzanne, and essentially we've assented to that conservative line, that full inundation, that what we're calling the muck line, and walked it with them, walked what we were going to do with regards to locating that physically in the field and marking it here. So we were a little surprised at the letter, or and we think that we can continue to work cooperatively with Suzanne and Martha and address their comments. And as Dave said, we'll do that in writing, point by point. But again, your commission, this is years and years later. You have to review this. You have to engage BSC, get out in the field with BSC, and look at these resource areas so that you can render a decision.
Okay.
Dave?
Thank you, Joe. So obviously, so the mean annual high, I think that's going to require additional vetting. We have a position on this, but I think that we can support this with additional information submittals through, and we'd also like to engage, as you said, peer review on this. And I think that there'll be intermittent steps on this. But if we can get out and look at it, I think that would serve some benefit to having more engaged dialogues on that line. So the wetland resource area, so it is a large wetland complex. The wetland delineation lines. Now I have a block over the site plan. Is that on your screen, Valerie? Oh, I see. So coming off of about at the midpoint, there's another wetland flag series. So this wetland complex actually runs up to, there's an existing road out there, Jefferson Road. And as Jefferson Road goes out to there's a terminal bituminous concrete pad, there's a culvert, and now there's an intermittent stream that runs underneath that culvert, and I delineated what is detailed here is the B series of flags, which is I wouldn't say it's isolated. It's an isolated pocket aside from the fact that there's the intermittent stream runs directly through it. And this intermittent stream runs through the wetland, exits out through a culvert on the south side underneath the NBTA railroad tracks, and then out to another wetland complex on the opposite side. So I provided BVW data sheets at 2 locations along this wetland delineation line. One of the comments that I saw today was that there is sort of a nebulous area of BVW that was based on sweet pepperbush. And sweet pepperbush is a very difficult wetland indicator species in the sense that it's facultative and it grows as happy in uplands as it does in wetlands. And there is, my delineation line was based on a vegetative break where sweet pepperbush was dominant both in the upland and the wetland data plot. But there are supporting wetland plants on the wetland side of my line that pass the dominance test. And one of the species that we lose is highbush blueberry on the opposite side of my line that then is overcome by lycopodium. So if you look at my data sets, that the sweet pepperbush it's dominant in both classes, but it actually is other supporting vegetation that swings the dominant class in favor of upland on the opposite side. And again, if you guys have any questions, we can look at this under site review and under peer review with BSC on that. So I think tonight we're more geared to fielding questions from the Conservation Commission in terms of preparing our additional information submittals. We already have the comment letter received by the watershed agency, and we're prepared to respond to those. But we'd also like to field questions from the commission as well, in terms of what supporting information you guys would need moving forward.
Thank you, David. Valerie, do you want to start, please?
As David and Joe mentioned, where the town is recommending a peer review of the wetland line, actually all the resource area lines. We have been in touch with BSC Group, and they are writing up a scope and a cost for that. The applicant has agreed to pay for that peer review. So I would recommend to the commission that this ANRAD be reviewed by BSC Group. I guess, and the other thing that was mentioned was we did get a set of comments from Suzanne and Martha today. And those were sent to you on email and put in the Dropbox. That was just today. So if you didn't get a chance to review those, you can review those afterwards, since we'll be reviewing this, into the next meeting.
Okay, thank you. Vinny, do you have any questions or comments?
I do, yes, I do. They might not be pertaining entirely to the Conservation Commission, but these are some of the things that should be looked at. This is not going to be on septic systems. Looks like it's going to be on town sewage. Do they plan to put in another pump station? That's one of my questions.
Yes, there'll be a new pump station.
Okay.
It'll be a municipal pump station, and we're working with the town engineer on that.
Okay.
The project will fund it, but it will be ultimately turned over to the town and available for residents in the area to tie into.
And if I could jump in, maybe the applicant's team could give just I know we're not reviewing the actual project right now, but maybe just give a quick overview of the purpose of this ANRAD.
Right.
I'm more than happy to, Valerie. Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, good evening. Andrew Chabin, with the pleasure of being the Chief Executive Officer of Princeton Properties. And my business partner, Dan Endyke, is also on this evening, and Andrea Lathrop, who makes all the wheels run for us on the development side. In short, we're proposing to build a 2-building, 108 apartment home community at the intersection of Middlesex and Jefferson. Several previous developers had approached the town to build in excess of 300 apartment homes here. We didn't feel that that was ultimately a responsible thing to consider. So when we were brought this opportunity a couple of years back, we told them that we thought that only 2 buildings was likely the right answer for a lot of reasons. And others thought that they could do a lot more. Ultimately, I don't think the town had any appetite for that. We were able to work with the land seller once those plans fell through, and reached a deal where we sort of came back to what I think is much more of reality, which is a 2-building, 108 apartment home deal. Princeton Properties is a Merrimack Valley-based company. We've been in business since 1973. We own and manage over 7,000 apartment homes. We're headquartered in Lowell. We still have the very first 24-unit apartment building that we ever bought across the street from Lowell General Hospital in 1973. So we're long-term holders of real estate. The chairman of the firm is 83 years of age and going strong. He's the founder of the company and is our boss, and even came back from Florida today to share some wisdom with us. So it's a team effect, and Dan and I have been working together for now going on 27 years, doing exactly what we're proposing here. Our last 3 apartment communities are available, I think, within easy driving distance for any of the commission members to see, or any members of the town of Wilmington, as we've offered to the selectmen and to the zoning board, in the towns of North Andover, in the town of Westford, and in the town of Chelmsford are our last 3 apartment communities. And we're more than happy to take any commission member for a tour, or you're more than happy to drive, you're more than welcome to drive through at any time, but they're all relatively close. I think you can see the quality of what it is that we do. We have a pretty robust website, and I think you can probably get a sense as to the 7,000 apartment homes that are there. We can cover a whole bunch more, but basically that's the that's the gist of it. I will say that 80% of the apartment homes will be market rate, so the super majority, and the ones that are not, 70% of the ones that are not will have a preference to the town of Wilmington. So the town will be able to determine 70% of who goes there, whether those are sons and daughters of the town employees, et cetera. That is something the zoning board will be getting into, I would suspect, at their next meeting on the 27th of May. So that's the thought. I'm going to ask my partner, Dan Endyke, to just quickly touch on the approximate project timeline, because I think that's very important for the commission members to understand why we're here tonight and what our timeline looks like. Dan?
Thanks, Andrew. For the record, Dan Endyke. The timeline's it's aggressive when you look at it on the surface of what we're trying to accomplish, but there's a good reason for that. We are in front of you this evening to try to secure the ORAD. We're also concurrently in front of the Zoning Board of Appeals. Our goal is to get through the local approval process sometime towards the end of July. And the reason for that is that an integral component to this project being successful is us allowing the town to be in position to apply for a MassWorks grant for the extension of the sewer line is the majority of the work, but there's other infrastructure improvement that goes along with that. And we anticipate, in order to have standing, for the town to have standing, to make that application, the issuance of the comprehensive permit has to happen. So that's sort of leaves it. We'd like to get through all of the local process by the end of July, just for order. And we think we can. We can also, have a pretty deliberate and thorough review by all parties concerned. So that's it in a nutshell. We could, as Andrew said, we could go on forever about every little detail here, but I think,
Valerie, I think the most important thing for the commission to also note, if they haven't been following this along, is that we're actually very proud to have partnered. We're partnering with this with the town of Wilmington's Board of Selectmen. They are in essence our partner in this. We went to them first. They have endorsed the project. They've endorsed the use of the site for housing. In no way, shape, or form does that take away from what the Conservation Commission's charge is to do, as well as the Zoning Board of Appeals. But it is certainly was our intention to come into town and make sure that this was something that the Select Board wanted to see, and we're very pleased that they've chosen to partner with us on this. So that's where we're at, Valerie.
Thank you.
Uh,
I have another question. Can the water department deliver enough water to this complex?
Joe?
Something else that we'll be looking at, and we'll have to make any improvements or potentially put a fire pump in for the buildings, but we'll be exploring that with the water department, do flow tests and whatever we have to do. We can't do the project if we can't have the water for domestic use and fire protection.
So for the commission's information, some of the other peer reviews that are happening with ZBA, there'll be a peer review of the water capacity, a peer review of the sewer capacity and the proposed sewer extension. There'll be a peer review of the traffic study. There will be a peer review of the civil engineering and stormwater. So all of those things will be peer reviewed by outside parties as well as reviewed by the town staff. And just to note, so you know, BSC Group has agreed to review both the civil, stormwater, and wetland piece of this project, and that is, I think, gonna save some back and forth between consultants and having the same group doing those peer reviews.
Thank you, Valerie. Vinny, did you have any other questions?
Yeah, fire department have a mechanism to stop the commuter train at the crossing in case of a fire in that area? Is that something that is being talked about?
Not yet, but we will be interfacing with the fire department. That's an interesting question. Certainly emergency preparation or evacuation. So those details will come up during the approval process.
I'm all set for now.
Are you all set?
Yeah, I'm all set for now.
Okay, thanks. Ron, do you have any questions or comments?
Yeah, a couple of questions on the mapping. I noticed that the mapping seemed to be based exclusively on vegetation, and there seemed to be no hydrology analyses done. Is that correct, and why?
I'm trying to understand, in the wetland delineation or the determination of
Yes.
mean annual high?
In the wetland, in either.
Oh, no, the wetland delineation, if you look at my data sheets, I always record signs of, so there's three things I look at doing a wetland delineation. The first two and foremost are wetland vegetation and hydric soils. But surface hydrology is also something that I recorded notes on, and I documented in my data sheets for this
Okay,
area.
great.
So signs of hydrology would include everything from high water staining, signs of saturated soils, water stain leaves, buttress tree trunks. There's a lot of different indicators of hydrology.
Okay, great. If I'll take another look at it, just got it this afternoon. You mentioned sweet pepper bush. We see both in wetlands and in highlands. So
Yes.
I'm wondering why use that.
Well, sweet pepper bush. So when you're doing wetland delineations, Massachusetts recognizes facultative species as being a wetland species. Facultative by definition means that they occur 50% in uplands and 50% in wetlands. And there are a few species that, I don't want to say they're problematic species, but sweet pepper bush comes to mind. Glossy buckthorn, which is an invasive species, is another one. And normally you'll find these along the jurisdictional wetland line to bordering vegetated wetlands, but it's not a real indicator species that I would base my line on. You expect to find them sort of on the margin going back and forth over that wetland line. So there's a lot of other supporting vegetation. It was in one of the comments I think we received today. And I did recognize that those are sometimes problem wetlands, but my delineation was based on other supporting wetland vegetation as well.
Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Sure.
Laura, questions, comments?
Yeah, just for the soils, the wetland soils, it looks like in your notes you looked at the NRCS soil map. Did you
Yes.
collect soil samples or auger anything to take a look to verify?
I did. The entire site is disturbed historically, so the soil tests are inconclusive in terms of whether or not they correlate to what the USGS maps do. But I do soil sampling. I take test bits where the wetland delineation is in terms of looking for hydric soil indicators. So what I'm looking for is, you know, a deep, certain wetland indicators include low chroma soils in the A horizon. You're looking for oxidized features in the B horizon, which occurs due to seasonal water table coming up and coming low. So it's the first 20 inches of that profile. But just in looking at the composition, I think it was mapped loamy sand, and out in the field it looked like sandy loam. It's very close. It pairs well with the USGS map soils. But again, it's all subject to historical alteration. So it's not really a native parent material profile that you would expect to see on virgin ground.
And just for like my own, like vaguely where in this map are the buildings going? Yeah, because like I know there's wetland all over the place, but it's
So, yeah, the two sites they're somewhat redevelopment sites. There's the front building, what we're calling Building A, will be out where the existing retail is on the right-hand side of Jefferson. So we're working within that pavement area, and then a little bit to the west of the existing paved area. So it's a combination of redevelopment and new development. In the back, Building B will be, again, redeveloping the existing paved parking lot back there and moving out into that area that's buffer zone, a little bit of riverfront.
okay. All right. Yeah, that's all the questions I have for wetland. I know it's a little outside, but like Vinny said, there's always been issues in the town with emergency services and conflicting with the commuter rail right there. And I know the train station is in rough shape there. So that may be something for you guys to consider, especially if you're planning on
Yep.
having that site. But yeah, and I would agree with having a peer review done on this, especially with historic conflict. So
Thank
that's
you.
all I have.
Great. Thank you, Laura.
Alex?
Yeah, I definitely agree on the peer review. Just for my benefit, since I'm new and I don't have any really the history. If you could give me the quick summary of the concerns, you know, that drove the original appeal, and what were the issues that were brought up at back then?
Yeah, I think basically there was a difference of opinion on the science with regards to the setting of the riverfront. I think the commission at that time issued the ORAD and was silent on the river. So there was an initial appeal to DEP to have DEP step in and kind of break the tie. And again, the fundamental difference was the channel proper and the first observable break in topography and what classically is your riverine system and your riverine embankment. And the other side was that there was this historic inundation, and that the mean high, the maximum extent of inundation should be used. So DEP sided with the side of the channel proper, and the kind of the inward beginnings of the delineation. That was appealed to adjudication, and in adjudication, there was a side settlement agreement between the citizens group, which was Suzanne Sullivan and Martha Stevenson, the ones that wrote the letter today, and the applicant at the time, which was a potential developer, and the Conservation Commission, to basically say, okay, let's just use elevation. And they went bridge abutment to bridge abutment at Middlesex and then up at the railroad, cast that elevation through the site and said, that's the riverfront. And there was something created known as a settlement plan. And that was given to the hearing officer and said, this is what we all agreed that this is going to be it. It's uncertain as to why there was that backup from the developer side to assent to essentially the most conservative line. The wetland scientist at the time, Kurt Young, was taken out of the proceedings and during that settlement talk, so his science was no longer being considered at that point, and that's based on my personal conversations with Kurt, and I walked the site just this past fall with Kurt. So essentially what we're saying is it's the same science, same concept that we're doing here, and again in the spirit of cooperation and not going back to appeal. But this time, rather than elevation, which was a little bit blind, but that's what they agreed to, that they would just set the elevation and go survey that elevation. We went and located the physical evidence of inundation, what we call the muck line, which is where you've got high organics, you've got heavy leaf decomposition. It's obvious. This is where water stands at times during the year. This is where water does not. And we delineated that line throughout. So we feel that we shouldn't have a fight now because we've kind of assented to that, notwithstanding our belief that it could be the channel proper based on Kurt Young's input and based on what we know to be DEP's current feeling on these riverine systems that are frequently inundated. So that's the history.
Thanks, that was helpful.
Any more, Alex?
Good, Don.
Mike?
I have a question actually for Valerie. Is the Headwater letter given to the peer reviewer? And if so, are they addressing any of those comments?
So I will forward that to the peer reviewer for sure. And that'll be, reviewed, and I'm sure that they'll have something to say for the commission's, information. The peer review hasn't quite started yet. I'm waiting for a scope and cost that is due before the end of the week, and then the peer reviewer will get started on the peer review.
Okay, and if I could follow up, just a question that I think the applicant earlier said that they were going to try to address some of those. So do you give them a chance to try to address them before the peer reviewer responds, or does it matter?
That would be our intention, yes. I think that, again, this was received very late in the day today. I'd like opportunity to go on the written record to provide contexted written responses to these comments, such that when BSC gets to peer review, that they'll have our position on this on written record as well. Yep.
And as I stated before, we're happy to continue to work cooperatively with Suzanne and Martha to try to make sure that they feel that we're addressing their concerns. They appealed. They were instrumental in the appeal originally. We don't want that to happen again. So we don't want to do that in a vacuum. We want to keep them engaged and try to address on point. And I believe we did. So I was a little taken aback by the comments. But again, we'll we'll provide that written response and then hopefully engage them to get to that point.
I'm all set, Don.
Thanks, Mike. Have I gotten everyone except for myself? Yeah. I do have a question. The intermittent stream that you referred to that goes from the brook through the culvert and then under the tracks.
Yep.
Do you have any sense of how often it is actually flowing?
Well, I haven't seen it through all seasons. It's not a mapped USGS feature, so through the sequence of regulation, a perennial stream is a mapped perennial stream is perennial unless you can demonstrate that there's no flow for 4 days. A non-mapped stream that's either intermittent mapped or not mapped on a USGS map is presumed to be intermittent unless you actually do like a stream stats analysis that can demonstrate that there's greater than a half a mile radius flowing into it, or whether or not there's a stratified drift. Now, just going out there, I was out there delineating during very high water season, and there was barely a trickle in this. Now, I was observing this stream inside of the B series wetland flags, which is this where it goes underneath the culvert and passes underneath. Yep. Thank you, Valerie. That's exactly where I was observing this. And there was, I mean, there was a trickle in there that I would expect that most of the year this is likely dry. If it's really trickling during high water period, when you'd expect it to be at peak flow rates in any given year, that I would only see that going down under drier conditions.
Yeah, and it's also important to note that it was deemed intermittent during the 2003 ANRAD, wasn't contested at all at being that. The mean high water line, the riverfront line jumped over it. And we've looked at the watershed, and the watershed's very small, not even close to what would be required of it to be considered perennial under the regulations.
You show a flow direction that goes from the bottom of the page toward the top.
I'm not aware. Now, that came in I think in the comment letter, they said that at certain times of the year, it reverses direction, that during high water season. Now, I don't know how to disprove that. Now, when I was out there, this was flowing, again, as the page is oriented in front of us, from north to south. So this was flowing below the railroad tracks and exiting our site to the opposite side of the railroad bed and not coming in from the opposite direction. I think the comment memo alluded to the fact that when the water level recedes at drier times, that the water system on the opposite side actually begins to flow into our wetland complex on our site.
Yeah, I think it's the nature of the beast here. For whatever reason, whether it's sediment downstream, whether it's impoundments at the Middlesex Ave culvert, you're getting a higher inundation in this stream system than was classic, than what formed the shape of the channel. So you get some strange stuff going on, and I think it can flow in either direction at times, depending on what's happening in the Loversbrook.
Yeah. No, I don't disagree. It's possible.
And what bearing would that have on your determination of the high water, which is
None at
sort
all.
of
We believe it's intermittent, and we need to focus on the Loversbrook stream proper. So I don't think it has a bearing on the classification or the final location of the beginning of the riverfront.
Yep, I'm in agreement.
okay. That's all I have. Are there any calls for public comment?
So we should make an announcement. Anyone who wants to call in to speak, please do so. We could wait a couple minutes to see if anyone wants to call in. Those who are on the line, if you want to comment, please raise your hand. There is a hand up. So let me unmute the caller and we can take the comment. If you could introduce yourself for the commission. Caller, you could go ahead. Okay, there was a caller. Looks like they dropped off the call.
On the scoreboard that we have here, would that be the unknown caller?
It was,
Okay.
but I'm not. Okay, here we go. Let's try that again. Caller, can you go ahead?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, there we go. It's Suzanne Sullivan calling in.
Hi, Suzanne. Go
Hi,
ahead.
how is it? I just wanted to make just a couple clarifications because there was a lot that was said, and I hope the commission has the time to read our letter. I just want to stress that when we did the settlement back in 2003 to 2006, we took the dock staining. I just want to stress the dock staining on the bridge abutments, and it was interpolated throughout the site. It was a settlement, and I want to stress that. There were things that were given back and forth. One of the things that was given where this so-called intermittent stream connect with Lovers Brook, we agreed to just pass over that because it was part of the settlement. We do not believe that the mean annual high water has been properly delineated in that area. There were 3 flags when we went out there. When Martha and I went out there without Joe, when he was kind enough to give us the copy of the site plan, and we went out there and we went from flag to flag. And there were 3 flags, and we thought that they were in a fairly decent position there. I think it was 21 to 23. And those are the flags, 18 to 23 rather, and those are the flags that have been eliminated from review under this ANRAD. And we don't think that that's a good idea. So we put that in the in our letter. The other thing is, Joe, you shouldn't be surprised with our concern about flag 31 stopping there, because I sent you an email on April 2nd and never heard back from you. I told you that we had concerns about the last flag and felt that the line should go further down the wetland line, where the mean annual high comes in, and there's nothing that constrains it there. We actually documented flow in that area, and I want to stress that we did reach out to Joe about that flag, and we thought that it was not representative of the mean annual high in total. We think that it could probably go, maybe I went out there and paced it the other day, and I'm going to say it's at least probably 50 feet from flag 31. It's very close to even the summer channel, and it's basically where one of our settlement flags was flag 18. And we do believe that our methodology was pretty accurate. We wanted to use the muck line, and at that time, the wetland scientists didn't want to use the muck line, and that was where we came into disagreement. And so then we settled on taking the darkest stain. You can see the water was there for the longest amount of time on the bridge abutments, which would be very indicative of mean annual high water, and that was interpolated out through the site. So, like I said, that was a settlement. And if you look at the lines on the muck line, we came really, really close to mean annual high, and where the applicant is saying it's mean annual high. But there's just a couple of points of disagreement. And one of the points of disagreement is where the so-called intermittent stream comes in. When Martha and I were out there, there was a lot of flow going through that area where they're saying is not the brook. that mean annual high. And I believe we may have video of it. We took a lot of video that day. That's a bone of contention. And the other bone of contention, like I said, is we don't think that mean annual high should stop at flag 31. It should continue down. The other flags, we have less heartburn about. They're pretty close to our line that we had in the settlement. And I also want to just address that. I mentioned the sweet pepper bush, that flags were on the sweet pepper bush. That's where they were. I didn't say that we would just, when I looked at that wetland line, that was the only concern. There was also cinnamon fern that was not incorporated in that wetland line. But, you know, if you're going to have a consultant come out and maybe, you know, a site visit, then that stuff can be dealt with, I suppose. So those are our main bones of contention. And as I outlined in our letter, and once again, I don't know, I mean, we can come to some kind of agreement as long as the river gets protected, that it's under the law. That's all we want. That's all we've ever wanted. And we intend to make sure that that happens. We're hoping that the commission also wants to intend that that happens, because once you lose these areas, they're gone forever. It deserves the protection under the law that's it's afforded under the Wetlands Protection Act and the Rivers Protection Act. And I guess that's it.
Thanks, Susan. Just a clarification, when you were observing flow in the intermittent stream, can you say when that was? Was that this year? Was it a couple
I
weeks
think
ago? Hello?
Hello.
Hi.
I think I lost a minute. Can you say that again?
I wondered when you were observing the intermittent stream and saw the flow.
Martha and I went out there, I think it was either April 1st or April 2nd. Joe had sent us a site plan, and we went out there to each flag, and we looked at the condition where each flag was. And so I would say that was April 1st, maybe. And at that time, we were really pretty much at mean annual high water. We also took a picture of the bridge abutment, and the water level just about coincided with the darkest stain on the bridge. And you could clearly see it in the area. I mean, when you're out there and it's at mean annual high, you can see the flow going through. I mean, it's the brook, you know? And when we were at that area where the so-called intermittent stream is, and we were always under the impression, by the way, and if you look at the old site plans, and I don't know, maybe that's because the last wetland scientist told us that the flow actually came out of the culvert, and you can see arrows showing the flow comes out of the culvert from the railroad track and goes into Lover's Brook. We were never under the impression that it actually discharged from Lover's Brook, but I suppose there could be discharge at mean annual high water levels, because that whole area is inundated in water. There's nothing that restricts that water from going where it goes. There's no bank, there's nothing. It's open. It's very flat. And so the water from Lover's Brook goes in there. And we consider that mean annual high, and that could definitely be a big bone of contention, for sure. So there needs to be some type of agreement out there regarding that.
Okay, thank you, Susan.
You're welcome.
Suzanne,
Thank you.
do you have anyone else, Val, waiting to ask questions?
We do not currently. If there's anyone who wants to call in and ask a question or make a comment, please do so. But we do not have anyone on the line currently raising their hand. And remind me, John, to raise your hand, it is, or someone else probably knows this.
*9.
*9. So no raised hands at this time.
So shall we wait for a count of 10?
Sure. And anyone who's listening, this is not the last time that you can comment on this. This won't be closed tonight. It'll be continued to a future meeting.
Okay. That's that- and then is to hearing. In the meantime, to schedule a peer review. Is that likely to happen in the next 2 weeks or in the next 4 weeks?
We are shooting for the next 2 weeks. We are asking them to have something for you for the June 3rd meeting.
Okay, so the thought is we'll again entertain the same cast of characters at the June 3rd meeting. Yes?
Yes.
Okay. Um, So could I have a motion to continue the public hearing for the ANRAD for, I've got to bring up the agenda here, 378 to 384 Middlesex Ave and 200 Jefferson Road until June 3rd.
So moved.
Second.
And who was that made the motion?
Mike,
Mike. And second we had from Vinny, was it?
Okay.
Okay. So I'll poll the board. Vinny, how do you vote? In favor?
In favor, yeah.
Okay. Alex,
Vote in favor.
Laura,
I'm in favor.
Mike,
in favor.
Ron.
In favor.
I also vote in favor, so that's unanimous. So we'll see you on June 3rd.
Thank you so much for your time.
Sure, thank you. So we have one more piece of business, and that's the March meeting minutes. And let's see. We have 4 people, Alex, Ron, Vinny, and I who are present. So
And me.
Sorry?
And me.
Oh, it's for March 4th?
Oh, no, you're right.
Yeah, no, they just said that you and Mike were not able to attend. So have you had a chance to look at the meeting minutes for March 4th?
Yes.
Vinny,
I'm okay with them.
you good? And Mike? Oh, sorry. Ron, Alex?
They look fine.
Okay. There's only one thing I noticed, and that is, I'm going to wait for the clock to,
Those are very nice clocks.
yes. It's a little close to the laptop, though. There we go. Okay. Toward the bottom of the page, for the continued public hearing, 95 McDonald Road, the first voted reads to close the public hearing for 95 McDonald Road until the March 4th Conservation Committee meeting. And I suggest that we remove until the March 4th, 2020 Conservation Committee meeting. And that's the only thing I've seen. So could I have a motion to approve the conservation meeting minutes for March 4th as amended? Vinny made the motion. Could I have a second, please?
Second.
A second. Ron made the second. I'll poll the board. Vinny,
I'm okay with it.
Alex, how do you vote? Laura, how do you vote?
I abstained for the meeting minutes from March
Oh,
4th.
I'm sorry. Yep, you're right. And Mike, you're going to abstain as well. And Ron?
4 as amended.
Okay, and I vote for as well. So we've approved the meeting minutes for March 4th. Is there anything else, Val?
No, that's it. Well, one other announcement, I put out an ad for a agent because we can use the help. So we'll, even during these times, I'm gonna hope that we get some resumes in, and if you know anyone good, encourage them to apply.
Did you lose the candidate that was in the Carolinas?
Yes, that fell through, unfortunately. She let us know that she wasn't going to take the job after all. So we kind of started from square one.
Oh, that's too bad. Okay. Uh, So I guess we're all done for the evening then. So I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Laura made the motion. Second, please.
Second.
Vinny made the second. I'll poll the board. Vinny, how do you vote? Mike?
Enthusiastically in favor.
Laura?
In favor.
Alex?
In favor.
Ron?
In favor.
And myself in favor. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
thank
Thank
you
you for
too.
joining.
Yep. Good night now.